Hi! Here I am live on a Saturday night at 6 o'clock. And it's not normally when I go live, but I was trying a new experiment actually. And one of the things I was going to do was talk about glucose monitors and show you that I now use one. And I'm going to try and share screen at the moment. I don't know how to do that. As you know, I'm experimenting with eCam. But for those that don't know, the continual glucose monitor I had stuck into my arm yesterday morning, and it goes into your interstitial tissue. That's the tissue in between your sort of blood supply and the cell, basically. And it uses an algorithm calculation to work out what your blood glucose would be like compared to, say, for instance, it's a thin bar. Thank you very much for the message. Thin bear, sorry. Is this going to be as interesting as I suspect? Yes, it might be. I think it might be, because I'm really straight with what I talk about. And you can calibrate your continual glucose monitor with your finger prick. And I've got a Keto Mojo, but I haven't been calibrating it with that at the moment. But I will do. And I have eaten something before I came on, and my continual glucose monitor is at the moment saying, because I nipped out to the facilities before I started, it's just updating my glucose data. So, yeah, why do we have continual glucose monitors? Well, they're quite a handy thing for biohacking. Now, that's the thing. And I'm going to now try and do a little bit of a screen share, which would be something that I haven't done yet on this thing. So screen share, let's see if we can do this. That's no good, is it? That's rubbish. So let's go to, let's try the secondary display. Let's see if we can, here we go. Perfect, look at that. I don't think I'm on the screen now, but it doesn't matter, does it? So this was yesterday, my current glucose 4.9 millimoles per litre, and that was yesterday. From about 11 till 5 o'clock. And just for those that are not sure what that relates to, I've got some figures for you. So we'll come back to that one. I don't want you to see that one yet. So if it's 4.9, that's 82. If it's 5.5, it's 99 milligrams per decilitre. 6.5 is 117. 7.5, 135 milligrams per decilitre. And that's actually on this Lingo continual glucose monitor, the sort of ranges that they want you to have, which I think is pretty interesting. A bit higher than I was expecting, but I also am a bit more realistic about what your blood glucose can be when you first start this way of eating. Also, if you exercise, if you get stressed, if you don't sleep, all those sort of things. So let's go back to that. So, what was it? Friday, and it was a good start, just pretty easy. So they want you to be in this range. Now, this surprises a lot of people, that it's sort of like 75 to 115 sort of thing, that 110, and as long as you're in this range, this is fine. Now, so I was pretty happy with yesterday. We will do the live bit in a minute. Now it's updated, and that's good. All right, that's quite good. And last night I didn't sleep, actually, for various reasons. A little bit of stress, a little bit of problem with the house. We have found another leak. For those that have watched me a few times, we've had a leaky roof, a leaky chimney. It's a very old house, by the way, and then we found a leak only yesterday, which we wasn't expecting. So that's obviously costing us a bit of money. And so we're going to look at stress as a factor, which wasn't going to be in my talk. It was going to be about things like exercise, which I've done today. And I've done a lot of work. I've been working really, since the beginning of the day, lots and lots of consultations. And because I've been doing lots of blood analysis, it's interesting how much my brain needs glucose, and also training. And also I'm a fan of soccer, so I watched the Liverpool match a little bit on and off and got very excited. And you can see all that, because this didn't happen. All those things didn't happen on this day. This was just a pretty straightforward day where I'm doing a lot of research, writing my book, or the second edition of my book, and a little bit of food midday, and a little bit of food later on, and obviously carnivore stuff. And that's a really good thing. So today I deliberately tried to biohack it all, but I didn't expect also to not sleep. Now, I'm not talking about waking up early, like at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I think when people go to this way of eating, you can actually sleep a lot less, and that's fine. So let's go back to, see if I can go back to the primary display so you can see me for a bit. No, that's not right either. So I'm going to learn how this all works. So let's go to the camera. Yes, so the point being, last night with that extra bit of stress, it's changed the experiment a little bit because I didn't sleep. So I'm not talking about getting up, like I say, at 5 o'clock in the morning. I actually didn't get to sleep till about 1:30 in the morning, and then I woke up at 5. So it didn't really set me up very well for the day. And my day got a little bit sort of, not good. And, you know, you can get these sort of things that are a lot higher. And I haven't got the overnight numbers yet because my thing is updating right now. But once you get into the day, you will find that your blood glucose can run high. So mine ran really high for the whole day. So I'm going to show you I'm going to just show you on my phone right now where it is, because it's interesting. If you look at the screen there, hopefully you can see that it's 6.3 now, which is not great. That's about 110. So what's just happened has made me get to 6.3. Well, I watched the Liverpool soccer a little bit. I didn't watch it all, just watched highlights because I've been working. And that got me a little bit excited. And all day's been a stressy day because it's Saturday, so we can't get somebody out to fix the leak. And it's not gone out of range. Now, why is this important? Because people put too much importance on just those numbers. I have actually eaten something to see whether it's going to bring my blood glucose up or down over the next 20 minutes. We'll be interested to see. I will certainly be interested to see whether that happens. So it's been sort of a bit higher. It's been running at about 110 milligrams per decilitre all day. What did I do? Well, today I watched a little bit of soccer. I did lots of work. I did my X3 bar training. Like I say, a lot of stress trying to get people to come out and fix the leak. The car broke down, which cost me... It's not the smallest violin, by the way. We thought the clutch went a couple of weeks ago, and then the alternator went, so that's another 600 quid. So it's been a really stressful day. It's a couple of things I've been trying to organise, and that's kept my blood glucose up all day. Exercise, stress, not sleeping. It's been perfect as a experiment as to what will happen if you add carnivore food, because there's no spikes. All right, so that's one of the things I want to get across. There are no spikes on that, really. It's still staying within range. It hasn't spiked up, even though I had a lot of fillet steak about an hour ago, and it hasn't spiked up. Maybe an hour and a half ago. So, yeah, the food has not taken me out, but it's generally higher because I've had a day full of stress, not sleeping, and all that sort of stuff. Right, so that's cool. Now, I want to get across why that isn't that important, because it's not telling me a couple of things that we need to consider when we're looking at blood glucose, and that is what is happening in the background with insulin. So if insulin is really high, those numbers might have actually been lower if I was insulin sensitive. I don't know how insulin sensitive I am. I don't know my levels of insulin. So you can't really read that in isolation. You could say, well, you know, it's coming down, by the way, 6.2, it's not bad. It was 6.5 when we started, 6.6 when we started this. So that's also showing you how dynamic it is. I'm talking to people using my brain, hopefully, and it's, you know, it's coming down, even though we're doing that. And I have eaten something deliberately to see what happens in about 15 minutes from now. And it is not an exact science, because many people will say that, well, that's not bad blood glucose considering you've not slept, you're exercised, you've got all excited because you watched the soccer and really got involved. It's my team, they've gone to the top of the Premier League, they were 1-0 down and the teams around them lost. So, you know, it's a nice, exciting day for me. I've done loads of work Loads of online consultations, which obviously are important for people with their bloods, gone through their bloods and giving them information about their health, which is really, really an important thing. So look, that's 6.1, so it's going down. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that my blood glucose is being taken out of the bloodstream and put into the cells. And what puts it into the cells? Insulin. So maybe my insulin is not bad. Because even though I had all this stress and all this activity and all this excitement and all that steak, it's working. And that's important, because we need to know what my levels of insulin are. Now, the reason I say that is because if we was able to look at me 15 years ago, 20 years ago, before I became pre-diabetic, we could have guessed that I was on my way to being pre-diabetic and also on my way to being diabetic, because if we'd have measured my insulin and not my blood glucose, because if I just measured my blood glucose and just saw that number, I think, well, it's not too bad. It's not great. I didn't really understand that, sport would put it up, and stress would put it up, and not sleeping would put it up, and doing lots of brain activity would put it up. But you do actually know all that, because we are told, aren't we, that the brain takes up a lot of energy. When we're reading, doing something that's intellectual, the brain needs a lot of energy. So it needs about 120 grams of carbohydrate over a 24-hour period, which is where we get this 5 grams per hour of carbohydrate, glucose. But you don't have to eat it, and that's another thing. I just want to make sure people realise, when people say that about your brain needs that amount of glucose, it's not dietary glucose, it's glucose that the body can generate from gluconeogenesis, from non-carbohydrate substrates via gluconeogenesis. So, right. So we know that the brain needs a bit of glucose, and we know that insulin is needed to keep the bloodstream at those levels, in the good levels that we've got there, those markers. But 15 years ago, if I was able to do my fasted insulin, or if I was able to do my C-peptide, which is a proxy marker for how much insulin I'm making, I could have looked at myself in a more holistic way and thought, well, yes, I am in range. It's not great. It's good. I'm happy with that. I understand why it's higher than yesterday, when I was like 4.9, which is really good, sort of like 87, 89 milligrams per deciliter. Even with those factors, it's still pretty good. I could have thought that. But then if my insulin was very high, 22, 23, something like that, as opposed to 2, which it is now, when I measure it, I would think, wow, I'm producing a lot of insulin. I need tons of insulin to get the blood glucose where it should be. And this is what happens. And I have a really good video that I could show you, which I haven't got because I'm still working out how to use Ecamm Live. But the point is, if we went back 15, 20 years and we were looking at those numbers and thinking, yeah, they're still in range, but our insulin in the background was going up and up and up, we know something's up. And this is definite. So I did 10 years, I did roughly a decade in private blood labs. And this is what we've seen. We've seen trends. I did a nice video which illustrates this, taking data from real people, where we could see that the background insulin's going up, even though their blood glucose was staying fine. What does that show you? Well, that shows you that they're on the way to being diabetic. Because what's happening is you're needing more and more insulin to get the same result. And then what happens is the insulin goes up and up and up and up, and the blood glucose stays in range, and at some point there's just too much blood glucose for that, even with this elevated level of insulin, for it to stay in range. And that's when you get your diabetic or pre-diabetes diagnosis, which is what happened to me, exactly what happened to me. Now, what's the best way to stop blood glucose going up? Well, don't eat lots of glucose. Don't eat lots of carbohydrates. It's really that simple. What elicits the biggest insulin response? Carbohydrates. So the continual glucose monitor, which is what we're actually talking about, as Sandra is saying there, I'm really sorry, there's some great comments, and Sandra has a really great comment. I have no idea how to get it on the screen. Let's try and see if I can just drag and drop it. Whoa, there we go. Sandra, my blood sugar originally goes down after eating solid beef, then after a while goes up slightly and shortly after comes back down. Ground beef hardly doesn't hardly cause lowering, so that's good. Right, excellent. Well, now I know how to do that. And that's another thing I was going to show you. I think I've got it here, which is about the blood glucose spiking. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that on there, and we're going to nail that myth about protein becoming blood glucose. So let's have a look. Share screen. I'm trying to share the right screen. See if I can get that to. We did it just now, didn't we? So share screen. Right. So let's come back to the camera. I was able to share the screen earlier, and we're going to get there. We will get there. So let's have a look. Do it one more time. So source, share screen. Let's see if I can get to that one. Let's see if I can get to that one. Should be able to do it, shouldn't I? Here we are. There we go. Right. Excellent. Okay. So this is a display that I find particularly fascinating when it comes to blood glucose, because there's two studies here. As you can see, it's called Protein Will Not Spike Blood Glucose. So giving away the results, by the way. But when this test was done, it was the University of Michigan, by the way. They were so convinced that protein became blood glucose, and they just estimated that it was about 50% of your protein will become blood glucose. When they did this experiment, they used 160 grams of protein, 106 grams of protein, because they were going to give the person 53 grams of glucose to see what happened. So that's the 50%. So 50% of 106 is 53. So what they assumed is if they gave a person 106 grams of protein, therefore 53 grams will be available to become glucose. With me? Yeah, see, they got it wrong. Because what happened is when they put just 53 grams of glucose into this person, or lots of people, look at that spike. So line number 1 is relating to blood sugar after 53 grams of glucose. That's what happened to the blood sugar. They had all that glucose, and there it is showing up in their bloodstream. Then they gave them bread and butter, 100 grams of bread and 25 grams of butter, 53 grams of available glucose from that. And the bread, put it up. That's good. That's number 2. Number 3, blood sugar after 370 grams of apple. Apple, you see, 53 grams of available glucose. And look, you got a spike. Not as bad as straightforward glucose, not as bad as bread and butter, but the apple puts it up. Cut to the chase, number 4, which is the lean beef, 106 grams of protein. And look at the blood glucose. It did not go up. Wow. So exactly what Sandra just said when she said, my blood sugar originally goes down after eating solid beef, then after a while goes up slightly and shortly after comes back down. There you go. So that's what happened. That's exactly what's in that graph, isn't it? You can't see my pointer, but number 4, the bottom line, is the blood glucose from the beef. And it's just basically almost a flat line. Does exactly what she says. It goes up a bit to 2 hours, and then after 3 to 4 hours it goes down. How amazing is that? There's loads of other studies, and then you can do what's called you can label the amino acids. This is a different study, and they're basically I've got a link there. The scientists, thanks to doubly labelled carbon and nitrogen, could precisely track how much glucose came from protein, or the protein meal. As you can see, it was an insignificant amount. So this is what's called a glucose flux test, or an interval test. Basically, what happens is this is the blood glucose with the little black dots at the top, and the glucose flux from dietary amino acids, which have been labelled. So this is the amount of protein, this bottom line, which hardly goes up at all, is from protein that's been ingested, and they've been able to track, sort of marking it, fluorescent, and or labelling it, basically. So we know categorically that after 2 hours there was still hardly any of the blood glucose. As you can see, most of this is the blood glucose right at the top there. Tiny little bit came from the protein meal. So what's the point of that? Well, the point of that is that we can let's get rid of that secondary display and go back to the primary display, which is that, and then come back to me, and I'll get it all right eventually. So hopefully you found that interesting. I would have hoped so, because we said that this was going to be about continual glucose monitoring, and that's what we looked at, glucose monitoring. So like I say, it's the interstitial tissue that's being measured. I've got my monitor on my arm, and it's linked to that app. And whenever I eat something, it's going to show me my blood glucose going up or not going up at all, or if I'm stressed, I don't sleep. If I do exercise pushes the blood glucose up in a good way. We've also then got to remember about the insulin, haven't we? So if you're interested, by the way, in supporting the channel, you can do super chats, I believe. So that would be good. So what's the downside to a continual glucose monitor? Well, it's being obsessed with the data, which I definitely can understand. I like the biohacking side of things very much, but it can be troublesome. You can get too much into the weeds. I've had clients that have actually got one continual glucose monitor from one company, one from another one, and the finger pricking to make sure the data's right. Now, an odd one for me is when people say we shouldn't use them because it causes anxiety. So, for instance, if you're looking at the numbers and you don't really understand it and you see your number going up and you get some anxiety, that's supposed to be a negative. But is it a negative? Because it's making you think about the food you're eating. So, tomorrow I am... Oh, by the way, it's live, isn't it? So I did eat something. My blood glucose is going up right now. Ooh, am I anxious? 7.6. It's going up. I wonder if you could guess in the comments what you think I was eating. That's already put my blood glucose up. I think it got down to 6.1 when I started, and it's now 7.6. So that's the point. Would that make someone anxious? And is that a bad thing? Because they might be thinking, well, it's gone up ever such a lot. Like I say, it's now sort of, what was it? 7.6. So it's now over 130. It's now over 135 milligrams per deciliter. Still hasn't gone out of range yet. I personally think that is quite high, but not bad high. It's just, higher than it was. And what did I eat? If I was to tell you might be surprised, and I will tell you in a minute, but I would, not grapes, Cruz, that's a good guess. I would be mindful of that. And that's what anxiety actually is. So I do deal with some people when we talk about mental health and all that. And we talk about, I did eat a steak earlier in the day, much earlier in the day, and that didn't do a thing. I just stayed where I was. All right, so here we go. 7.8 is the next reading. Woohoo! Granola bar, Cheerios. Could be. I am going to show you in a second. But the point is, anxiety makes you make a choice. If you didn't have anxiety, you wouldn't make a choice. So we always talk about fight, flight, or freeze. So if a tiger came into my room now and tried to eat me, without anxiety, I wouldn't make a decision. I would just get eaten. So anxiety is a human physiological response, not elevated chronic levels of anxiety, but anxiety as in, wow, that's gone up to 7.9. Why? That thing I've eaten, I thought that was healthy. 7.9. Cheese is another guess. From Moorhen. Great names. Richard Dowd has just put chicken thighs in the oven. Oh, I love chicken thighs. Yes, with skin on. I did a meal plan for someone today, and just the pictures of the, Basically, if you don't know, I do meal plans that for people that have got a target weight, whether they want to gain muscle or lose body fat or whatever it is, and whether they once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, and design the whole thing. And it is personalised. I do it, hand-picked recipes from a database of about 200 I've made, of actual recipes that I've cooked, by the way, and taken pictures of on my own plate. Here I am at 8, by the way. 8. This is live continual glucose monitoring. Miss Laugh a Lot. Oh, I like that. Banana, ? Finn Bear, did you read tomorrow's toilet piece for science? Yes. Well, that's the thing. Right. Tomorrow I'm having something I am absolutely convinced was one of my big downfalls. Because I believe the food guidelines absolutely, totally and utterly before I got to age 50. And I didn't eat red meat. Again, because of a misconception as well. I avoided red meat because of the saturated fat. But as I was told by Zoe Harkham, by the way, which is the 1000th video I've done on my channel, which is actually premiering now at the same time as this live. Please watch it afterwards. Please stick with the live. It's a misconception that saturated fat is abundant in a ribeye. So a ribeye, for instance, if you look at a ribeye steak, 71% water. 71% water. See, that's quite surprising. A fair bit of protein, obviously. I think it's about 19%. About 7% fat, I think, off the top of my head. 2% of it is saturated fat. So when you're eating red meat and thinking you're avoiding saturated fat, you're not. And there's so many things that have more saturated fat. I've got an itchy nose. Don't know what's happening here. Sorry about that. So, yes. Finn Bear, honey. Andy is saying oats. Butter from mmol. That's an interesting question. Exercise, lotto retirement strategy. I did exercise earlier and that didn't do it. So I think I showed you my earlier flat line. Which you can see, by the way, when I show you that I'm now 8.2. If you look at earlier in the day, you can see I did my X3 bar exercise. I watched a soccer match. I got very stressed. I didn't sleep much. I worked and worked and worked. I used my brain ever such a lot. Hopefully I did. Now I had something 2 minutes before I came on. Somebody said I should have eaten it on camera, but I wanted people to try and guess. Egg, butter, exercise, honey, oats. So anyway, going back to my story, I absolutely believed the food guidelines and I was eating all the wrong things. But I thought they were all the right things. And that's why I think continual glucose monitors are actually really good, because you can prove it to yourself. So when I started talking about low carb and keto, it was really annoying because when I passed my specialist practitioner certificate in obesity and diabetes, I still believed in high carb. And I can remember that they didn't want, at that point, they didn't want glucose monitors in the hands of patients because they didn't think that was a good thing, as I was trying to get at earlier when I said about anxiety and all those sort of things. But actually, knowledge is power. Anne is asking, was it an apple? Morehead, interestingly, with that name, is egg, ? 8.3. Look, 8.3. Now, it's gone over that band now. So I am potentially, if I didn't know what I was doing, worried. I'd be very worried. But no, I now know that this food is not one I should eat because it elicits a very high glucose response. If it's doing that, Finn Bear, maybe something less disturbing like rice. Very interesting. If you think of that, how much insulin is in there? Wow, because I think I'm insulin sensitive actually, because my insulin is pretty low. My C peptides are very low, and this experiment is quite exciting, and it's got you all guessing. And I think you're all on the right wavelength, because we sort of know what the culprits are, but this proves it. And I think that's one of the things that I really like is trying to get people to do their own research. So going back to, say, the Zoe Harcombe interview, one of the things that we were looking at was how to dissect studies, because studies are just conflicted. There's conflicts of interest. It's always funded by the big food companies. And, you need to be able to read them yourself. So 8.4, this is just, my head's going to explode in a minute. Sandra, milligrams per deciliter, 85, guilty of eating chili, enjoyed every bite, 2 pounds of ground beef, 2 pounds of fajitas, cut beef, diced tomatoes, tomato paste, tossed out a mass of flour, added chilies, mild. Okay. By the way, I'm not a fan of tomatoes. If you've got joint pain, one of the easiest fixes is to get tomatoes out of your diet. They are very inflammatory. Modern tomatoes in particular. Sorry, I know, Sandra, you're watching, and it's fabulous you're putting a comment down. So I'm not being down on you, but just off the top of my head, I'm just saying, if you have joint pain and you're eating tomatoes, take those out. I'm not being the carnivore police here. Just take those out and see if your joint pain goes down. 2 weeks later, if it hasn't gone down, I'll be gobsmacked, absolutely gobsmacked. So, right. So the limitations, and I think now what's happening is it's starting to come down now, 8.3. When it starts to come down more, and we get back to maybe 7.9, I'll tell you what it is. So I'm a bit surprised. I thought it would be a bit higher, but I do think I'm insulin sensitive. But I didn't eat much of this particular thing, and you wouldn't believe the damage that would cause. Tomorrow, I am absolutely dreading it. I have been doing little bits of experiments with my Keto Mojo and some dry blood testing and all that, and eating things I don't want to eat. And I think tomorrow is the end of the experiments, and I can get back to being fit and looking better. So yeah, what was I going to say? So yeah, so the CGMs are valuable. So if, let's say, your reading was continually 8.3, forget all the insulin stuff. That's telling you something's not right in what you're eating. That's quite high blood sugar. High, by the way, is a pejorative term. It's still a construct. If the reason I say that is because people can have allegedly low blood sugar, but actually perform completely fine, because in this way of eating, the numbers are a little bit more nuanced, because these numbers relate to people eating 45 to 65% carbohydrates. So I'm aware of all the variation in all these things, all right? But these are just really good. So what we could say, and this is the next bit, we're looking at this, and I just let slip the next point. I could look at when it comes down and how quickly it comes down. So it went up quite quickly. Is it going to come down quickly? If it does, it probably indicates two things: that a lot of insulin was produced, or I'm very insulin sensitive, or both of those things. Because that's toxic. You don't want it. Oh, it's gone back up now. Look at that. So, spoke too soon. Talk about jinxing it. Right, so let's have a look. Please let it not be coffee. Now, let's make it not coffee. But are you talking caffeinated, or are you talking decaf? Right. That, if you look at earlier in the day, there's no big bumps. And I have deliberately had a caffeinated coffee, first thing, and 2 decaf coffees. So I think you can see there's no big bumps there. So I don't think it was coffee. I definitely would say decaf is better. Swiss water decaf is better than caffeinated. But as you know, I'm not having coffee really anyway, and this is why I hate doing experiments, because of the acrylamides from the roasting process. So they can accumulate in your joints. So if you have joint pain and you haven't got tomatoes in your diet, you could also consider taking out coffee or anything that's roasted. Coffee is a roasted product, and it has acrylamides. That's why tea is all right for some people, because it's not roasted. You don't get acrylamides that accumulate in the joints. I did speak too soon. Look at that. I've gone back up to 8.6. So, wow. Was it the anxiety from seeing it go up? I don't know. Right. Andy's saying, the old coffee. I'm 7 days in to quitting. Right. Well, Andy, thanks firstly for the constant support. It's really great. And secondly, is that Carl Pilkington in your profile picture? Because that's quite interesting. All right. So the CGM, it's good in your hands. Can be a sort of coach, can tell you a little bit about possible insulin sensitivity or the fact you're producing lots of... The reason it keeps stopping is because this keeps going up. I thought I was on the downturn, but 8.7 is not great, is it? So maybe not as insulin sensitive as I thought, or maybe the food is worse than I thought. What was the other thing I wanted to say? So, yeah. Oh, yes, spikes as well. So that's the other thing. So if you look at that profile, there's no spikes and troughs. And this is another thing. When we talk about what is your average blood glucose, so people get hung up on average or the HbA1c, which is a calculated measure, which is definitely flawed. If you look at that, or you imagine, if you're listening to the audio, someone says my average is 100 milligrams per deciliter, or 5.5 millimoles per litre, approximate. So the reason I like 100 is because it's really easy to explain the next bit. Well, if over the day you was 150, then you were 50, then it went up to 150, then it went down to 50, went up to 150, down to 50, your average would be 100. Well, that would be much worse if you were 105, 95, 105, 95, 105, 95, because you haven't got such great peaks and troughs and therefore lots and lots of insulin. So I'm now at 8.8. I think, this is crazy. I was thinking I'd be finished within 30 minutes. So it is a live continual glucose monitor video. I do want it to be coming down before I finish. But I will literally tell you in a couple of minutes what I ate. But it is supposed to be a health food, really, which is not true. Let's give you a clue. I won a tennis tournament. That picture there is me getting a little cup for winning a singles tennis tournament when I was much younger. And the food I ate is actually what a lot of tennis players eat. There you go. That's it. But they eat them, obviously, between games. And if you watch them closely, because they have proper nutrition science, they don't eat very much of this thing. Because their coach has said, yeah, they are a good source of energy, but don't eat a whole one because it's way too much sugar. Just take a little nibble. There you go. Come on. We know what it is now. Yes, the comment about tea is really spot on. Yeah, tea has oxalates, had tannins. All of these foods, all plant foods, come with these little problems, for want of a better word. And so tomorrow I've got my live with Richard, 7 o'clock in the evening, and I will be talking about some other things and my experiment from tomorrow morning. Right, Nancy. Oh, hello, Nancy. Nancy. Good to see you. Thanks for looking. Right. Do I feel any different? You see, this is the big thing. Do I feel any different? No, I don't feel any different. Maybe if I was a rookie to this and I saw those numbers, I would be anxious going back. This is one of the things people do, try to get glucose monitors away from patients or ordinary people biohacking because, oh man, what a great question, orange juice. What a great statement, orange juice. Now, it's not orange juice, but freshly squeezed orange juice was one of the things that I absolutely loved, which I think was one of the things that put me towards being pre-diabetic, because that was one of the things I took out very quickly when I realised, yeah, orange juice, freshly squeezed orange juice. That sigh wasn't that I miss it. That sigh was because I believed everything. And I'm gutted that I was lied to for so long. And I was an advanced personal trainer. I pushed that as a good thing. Oh boy, I was duped completely. So here we are, 8.9, so it's still going up. I can feel fibre going all the way through my system when I have tried some fruit. Andy C77, that's Andy coming back there. That is Carl Pilkington in his profile, I think, by the way, the animation of Carl Pilkington. So, yeah, a few people think I speak like Ricky Gervais or David Brent, mainly Americans, by the way. So, but he's a bit more whispery, and a little bit more hesitant, yeah. And if you look at what we're eating, yeah, I think it's a bit like that. Anyway, right, that's a terrible impression, really. So going back to what Nancy said, do I feel different? No, I don't feel different. I think you're more likely to feel different when it's low, dangerously low. That's not gone up to 9. So I will tell you what I had. I'll get to the bin and I'll show you. I didn't have much. Ta-da! There you go. Yes, whoever guessed the banana, you were absolutely right. A very inoffensive banana about that size. That's all I had. Well done, Mark. I had a white banana, surely. Yes, it was a banana. So going back to the tennis, if you watch tennis, these people are flat out, for 5 sets or 3 sets, depending on what the tournament is. And they do not eat a whole banana in between when they change around, when they're having their rest. And it might look like they're drinking orange juice, but they're probably not. And yes, Andy, it wasn't even a ripe one. I deliberately got one that wasn't really particularly ripe. And I think it's pretty scary when you do this. Finbear, my only guess was the banana. Yes, absolutely. Here I am, 9.1. I think I'm going to be here all night until my head explodes. But it is one of those things. Because I would eat a banana. So we've got 2 of those things already. A banana was something I really thought was great for me. And freshly squeezed orange juice, I really thought was great for me. I haven't tested freshly squeezed orange juice. A bit scared to be honest, because I think, that amount of fructose, for a start, don't really want. A super chat, thank you very much, Cruz. That's really nice. That's very helpful. Let's see if I can do that. Super chat, $5 from Cruz. Just running a CGM try of 2 French butter cookies with regular coffee. Just spiked a delta of 35 units at 60 minutes. Felt hot at peak time. Thanks. See, this is the thing. How you look and how your body reacts, how you feel, whether your vision gets impaired or you feel dizzy. These are all things you don't need a glucose monitor for. Right, and now this is where I get a bit frustrated, because many things that I suffered with, so bloating, lower left quadrant pain, lots of gas, I was told these are all normal. So I believed it, because everyone else around me was having a bit of gas and all this stuff. Right, so here I am at 9.2. Pretty scary. Now it says here, it's very interesting, thank you. Finbear, I'm sure I'd feel the sugar rush if I had a glass of orange juice. That's what worries me. I think I would have a sugar rush with orange juice. Andy saw a vid from Canberra today. Looks like oranges have more sucrose than fructose and other sugars. Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, one of the things I was going to do tonight was I was going to have some pictures of what fruit used to look like and what it does now, but I just didn't want to do an overkill. And I was really talking about the continual glucose monitors rather than sort of being down on lots of foods. But I do think Lotto retirement strategist Miss Laughlot guessed banana first. You're absolutely right. And when I saw the guess of banana, I did want to build up a little bit of tension so we could get some other great guesses. Everyone's on the same page. I think somebody said beef, but beef would not do that. And I think I even said I had some beef from earlier. But yeah, and we talked about protein not spiking your blood glucose. So anyway, right. So I'm at 9.2. 9.2, had that banana. Literally, so we've been live for 43 minutes 49 seconds, so I had it 45 minutes ago, so it's still pushing up my blood glucose right now. And isn't that bad? That's 45 minutes. So how much insulin is my body pumping out? Because that's toxic. That is now double what it should be. Really, we need a teaspoon of sugar, not 2 teaspoons. And it's it's a lot. I've only got 5 litres of blood. So I think when we look at blood, and we look at blood glucose, and we look at blood testing, I mean, one of the things, I'm actually making my blood... my book there, Guide to Blood Tests in the Context of Keto, Low Carb and Carnivore. I'm doing a second edition, which hopefully will be out next week with the additional information. I've added over 100 pages. I get into more of the weeds than I did because I wanted the book to be sort of, not a pamphlet, but I wanted it to be something you could dive into and look at kidney stuff and look at liver stuff. But a lot of people on Amazon were a little bit unkind, like, oh, I'd like to know a lot more. I think you should. So, but it's a cheap price. I want to keep the price down so it's affordable. So anyway, I've gone into the weeds a little bit more about the bloods and been a bit more chatty and less repetitious about the damaging effect of glucose and stuff. But one of the things I put in the book, and I think you'll like this if I just say it now, is what we do when we do a blood test. Now, the continual glucose is looking at interstitial tissue and the fluid in between the bloodstream and the cell, as I said earlier. It's still a blood analysis thing, but blood tests, they take maybe 4 teaspoons of blood, one snapshot, so if you look at that, that's very variable, isn't it? That line, even though it's reasonably flat. I know we've had this spike deliberately from this experiment. Oh, it's come down a little bit, 9.1. So 4 teaspoons of sugar from 5 litres of blood, or 18 or 8 to 12 pints of blood, and that little 4 teaspoons taken one snapshot in time is responsible in the Western world, in Western medicine, for 70% of healthcare decisions. That little snapshot. So this is where continual glucose monitors are starting to set a trend. Now, a month ago, I didn't actually know, and I'm really happy to say to people I don't know everything. I didn't know there were really efficient continual keto monitors. So there's that. I think the game changer would be when they're able to measure insulin. Insulin is difficult. Its half-life is very quick in the body, which is why C-peptide is a better measurement, because when we make insulin, the vesicle that releases insulin also releases at the same time C-peptide, which is cleaved off. So then when the insulin goes into the bloodstream, it degrades much quicker than C-peptide. So we use C-peptide because it sticks around a bit longer. That's basically it. And it's a great proxy marker for the production of insulin. So that's why we use that as an indicator. Well, we're putting all of these things in people's hands now, and the knowledge, and people are talking about these things. But the great thing is you can then marry it up to the food you're told is really good. So, recently we were told that M&Ms are healthier than an egg. Well, you could eat both of those. Not at the same time, obviously, because that would be a rubbish experiment. But you could eat your bag of M&Ms and see what happens to your blood glucose. And you could prove that these people are lying to you, because if you eat an egg, you won't see that response. And if we had the insulin being measured as well, wow, that would be so conclusive. Now, that's why I don't think we'll ever see insulin being measured on a global scale, because it would just give you too much information. We had glucose, insulin, ketones, it'd be great, but there you go. So I'm now coming down 8.9. So where are we? So that little banana was 49 minutes of just spiking my blood sugar live. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know. Tomorrow I won't be videoing the breakfast, but I will be talking about the breakfast on my live tomorrow night with Richard Smith, the UK's top nutrition expert, as seen on TV. So at 7 p.m. on my YouTube channel, his YouTube channel, The Keto Pro, we'll be doing a little bit more about this and obviously taking your questions. I'm really pleased that people are just commenting here. Why is it tiny bit of fruit effects are lessened by eating with meat meal versus by itself? Less change of hunger spike after tiny fruit amount, about the size of a kiwi, only about 1 ounce, only about once every 4 to 5 minutes. I don't really get what you're saying, but yes, if you eat certain foods with other foods, you can lessen the effect on the blood sugar for various reasons. Absorption, for instance. What happens is when you eat meat, for instance, let's just say a piece of meat. Let's start with that first. So when your stomach acid is there to break down the meat. So the first thing is you've got mechanical digestion. Let's do digestion 101, right? So your factory nerves, the smell is deliberate to get you ready, all right? And visually also, that gets you ready. So that's what's called the cephalic response. So what I'm actually doing is backtracking to food and the whole thing. So when you see something, you get a cephalic response. I want to eat that. That's great. And then you smell it. Oh, that smells good. Or obviously, it's a protective mechanism. Oh, wow, I think that smells off. I'm not eating that. So the factory function is really important. Which is why, with these restrictions where people have lost their sense of smell, it's ruined their life because they lose their sense of taste. And it has been approximated in studies that actually the smell is about 88% of your taste sensation, which I believe, because talking to people who have lost that sense of smell, how little they enjoy food, I think that might be true. So anyway, so that's the next bit of digestion. So for some people, this is where artificial sweeteners can be a problem. If you're expecting sweet, then your pancreas might fire up, because that's biphasic. That has a granular sort of insulin ready to go, and then another burst of insulin. You could get an insulin response just from expecting something sweet. Then if you get sweet taste on your tongue, that can also do it as well. Now, and then you chew it up. We'll get to your question, but let's understand the whole mechanism. So when you chew it up, you've got all the digestive enzymes, salivary enzymes in your mouth, obviously. Chew it up, break it down, then it gets into your stomach. You've got stomach acid. Now, food isn't passive. Food makes things happen. So when you break the meat down, it has molecules that send messages. All right. So if you look at some meat, there's a thing, an amino acid called taurine. Now, taurine regulates and modulates things like the production of bile. And bile emulsifies fats, and it will make the environment very different to if you just have some fruit, because there's a lot more going on. So what you've done is you sort of fired up your digestive system. It's a bit analogous to don't eat XYZ on an empty stomach. All right, so you have the meat and you have a bit of fruit, then there's a lot more going on. So you probably will slow down the stomach emptying and the absorption in the small intestine. So this is why you can get experiments where people eat the meat before a carbohydrate, and they get a completely different continual glucose pattern, curve or whatever you want to call it, compared to if you have the carbs first and then the meat and stuff like that. So you can biohack the response a little bit. So just so you know, as this is continual glucose monitoring live, I'm now at 8. And my insulin is doing its job, but it has taken quite a long time, hasn't it? And I've got to finish in an hour. I really have. Can't go on longer than an hour. It's ridiculous. I've worked all day. Right, and I didn't sleep. And all the stress and all that. So, right, now... so that's digestion. So the bile emulsifies fats, and it also has a role in the release of food from the stomach. It regulates the stomach entering. And when we talk about signaling molecules, if you think of like a concert hall with lots of entrances and exits, obviously, because you can come in and out. What is taurine? Taurine is like the person at the door with a clicker counting the numbers. So if the venue needs 500 people in and you've got 500 people in, you don't let anyone else into the cell. And then when some people leave, this is what a signalling molecule is. It's an analogy for that. When the people leave, they click. All right, okay, we've got 450 people. We can let 50 more people in. Well, that's what when we say it's a signalling molecule, it's just basically sending signals around to each other and regulating what's going on. Well, taurine from meat will do that. And, it will help with your digestive system. Right. So, Sandra, hopefully that helps. So all these things are going on from the food. So I'm now at 7.7. I think I've timed this just right, haven't I? I actually started to get back down to where I want to be, back into that normal range. 7.7 still doesn't make me happy, but it's getting there. When I get to 7.5, that's going to be 135 milligrams per deciliter, and I still want it to come down. I want it to come down 5.5, blah, 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 and a bit lower, and it will do. And then tomorrow, yes, Rob is saying, according to Hershey's M&Ms are as good as an egg. Well, according to, I think it's the Fresh study, where they've done some sort of like bar chart where the top food has the longest bar and the worst food has the shortest, and there's a big long list, and I think like watermelon's up the top there, and oh wow, terrible foods, and the worst three are eggs and beef. It's just crazy. And M&Ms, which are a packet of M&Ms is it's at least half of that packet is sugar, and apparently that's better than beef, or it's better than an egg fried in butter. Incredible. And a lot of these things don't even pass the common sense test, do they? Lotto retirement strategist. So the fibre in the banana isn't helping to modulate the carbs. Well, it doesn't seem to be, does it? I mean, the fibre there may actually have it may have been worse without the fibre in the fruit. It may have been, but we can't test that because we can't get a banana without any fibre in. But it didn't do its job, did it? Because we got up to 9 something, so that was pretty bad. And you're right, Andy. I mean, people do make excuses for indulgences, and it's one of the interesting things that the thing I'm eating tomorrow for breakfast was my go-to. Absolutely used to love it, and I am dreading it. I'm absolutely dreading it. Someone mentioned fruit juice as well, didn't they, earlier? Well, I used to love a smoothie with, wheatgrass or a powder protein shot. All these things, that they add to sell it to you. Oats it had in it, honey, of course, and I used to think this was fabulous. And I'd been carnivore for a long time, maybe 2 years, I think. And I was out, and there was a concession stand. I said to my wife, if I just try that, I wonder how I'll do and whether I'll be able to cope. So I tried it, and 20 minutes later I was in a park on a bench, fast asleep. So I couldn't cope. There's way too much sugar. So I think Ken Berry uses the expression of being in a sugar coma, definitely. And actually, my stepfather had a diabetic coma, so I'm not being glib about it, and did have an amputation. So, in my family, I've actually seen that. And now that was my stepfather, but my stepfather was my uncle. My real dad died when I was very young, and then my mum remarried his brother, who just lost his wife, actually. So so there is, a family tie there. And basically he was diabetic, like I say, had a coma and had to have a toe amputated. So I thought it was all genetic. I thought when I got my pre-diabetes diagnosis, I thought, that's it. This is my number. I'm going to have all those complications. Of course, it wasn't genetic. It was all down to what I was eating. So let's have a quick look at this. Stephen, this is from Mandy. Stephen, if you are a long-time lion, absolutely anything from animal food spikes your CGM even more from being strict meat. Only I found more sensitive. Yes, I mean, the thing is, I all this thing about being metabolically flexible is for another day, because I think that's a good point. Andy went down the wheatgrass route once, tasted like crap, but I've told myself it was good for me. Yeah, and this is why they added honey, and this is why they added oats and stuff, because it's not very palatable otherwise. Tomorrow will be a very uncomfortable day to sit in the car with you. Am I wrong? Or get in an elevator? Oh, yes. Well, I don't think I'll be gassy. I just think I will not be enjoying it from a blood glucose point of view. So anyway, we've been on for an hour, which is fabulous. So here's my experiment. I ate a banana 60 minutes ago, and my blood glucose went through the roof, and it still hasn't gone down. So I'm at 7.1. 7.1. So I am, where am I? About 125 milligrams per deciliter. I want to thank you. Thank you for the super chat earlier. That makes these things much easier to do when you've got a little bit of money coming in, because we're doing it to try and educate people. And I was hoping I would get under 7, but I haven't got to under 7 yet. I think I will by tomorrow. Within the next 5-10 minutes, it will be down under 7, and then it will eventually get down to where it was, about 4.9, I think it will be eventually, which is about 82, which is normal. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this live. Ecamm, I'm trying to get used to. And I want to thank you all for watching. If you would like to do a super chat, that'd be great. If not, just drop a like, a comment and a share. Anything that supports the channel. I was just stalling it a little bit. I've got to 7. I'm sort of happy with that. I've got to 7. It's taken me 60 minutes to get that down. One banana did that, and it's been fun. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I really do appreciate everything you do. So if you come tomorrow 7 p.m, it'll be myself and Richard, and hopefully I'll have a bit more to tell you about my terrible day with my awful breakfast. Okay, have a good evening everyone.